Hello everyone, and good evening to everyone. On this Wednesday evening, we are coming out with a lot of opportunities for our chartered accountants members in the areas of internal audit, and that will be taken by CA Ruchi Gupta and our very prominent moderators, C. Akshay Hundia and C. Viraj. So, welcome all of you, and with the blessings of our chairman of Board of Internal Audits and Management Accounting, CA Prakash Sharma, who is not on the screen and in the session, but he has already given his message to for everyone's. That session should go good. So, friends, it is our endeavor to serve the best to our entire fraternity, and that is why we are serving this knowledge, sharing this knowledge through this webinar. So, CP is not important, but serving the knowledge and gaining the knowledge is important, along with unstructured CP. And we never know, okay, with this webinar and this knowledge, a lot can actually happen in our practice and the profession, because new avenues are there. With the new things coming up, a lot of technology has developed, and the way in which the things are being handled earlier, these have been totally revamped. And with this increase in technology, the new opportunities have been envisaged. And that is why we feel that every 3 months, the new opportunities are coming. So now, for example, in ESG, sustainability, huge opportunities. Now, with even audit trail, a simple thing, audit trail coming in, we have members have a lot of new opportunities, right? So similarly, if everyone can go through what the new notifications, new rules, regulations are coming, and that small one line of regulation can be the game changer, and a lot of new opportunities can come, whether it can be GST litigation or into audits or verification or non-financial area. So, friends, just keep your eyes and ears open. Profession is like, the work is like an ocean. Only we have to see and keep observing where actually we can get, and what type of work we want to do, how to value ourselves, and how to do what to do with. And if you do that thing and do, you can do the wonders in your profession. So for today's this novel opportunities in internal audit and various areas, we have C. Ruchi Gupta, and she is from Jaipur. I know her, and she is very dedicated. At this young age also, she is performing the best. So Ruchi, welcome to you on behalf of Board of Internal Audit, and Akshay and Viraj, both of you who are moderating and ready to moderate the session. I can see you are well prepared. So welcome to both of you. And Aarti Bansal, who is our secretary and always available and ready to work for in the interest of members, and serving the best with lot of activities. So with these words, I welcome all of you on behalf of Institute of Chartered Accountants of India and Board of Internal Audit and Management Accounting, and wish you a very happy learning.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. At the outset, I, C. Akshay Hundia, along with C. Viraj Mehta, would like to thank C. Prakash Sharma, Chairman, and C. Priti Paras Savla, Vice Chairperson of the Board of Internal Audit and Management Accounting, to give us an opportunity to moderate today's session on internal audit and opportunity for chartered accountants. I think now is the time to look beyond in traditional practice like mandatory audits and compliance practices. Internal audit is a very vast domain, especially with the help of technology and AI taking into action, which helps management sitting at one part of the country to control its business in the other part of the country. This is where we chartered accountants as a professional come into picture. I'm sure our today's speaker will cover many other areas of internal audit and opportunities, it gives us. I am honored today to introduce our today's speaker for this session, CA Ruchi Gupta. CA Ruchi Gupta qualified her chartered accountant in the year 2008 and has more than 15 years of professional experience with multinational companies like Deloitte and Genpact, and has now started her own CA practice firm in the name of AGRS and Associates, providing business solutions and management consultancy to approximately 200 plus clients amongst various industries, including manufacturing, service, hotel, export, etc. She is currently the treasurer of Jaipur branch of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India and a past secretary of Jaipur branch of ICAI, a national speaker, and has conducted various sessions for industries and professionals on income tax, GST, and labor laws. She is also a certified soft skill trainer and has trained more than 1,000 professionals on interpersonal skills. She has received Excellence in Profession Award from Finance Minister of India, Ms. Nirmala Sitharamanji, in April 2024. She has hosted various national conferences of chartered accountants and has welcomed various dignitaries, bureaucrats, including Shri Bhajanlal Sharma ji, current CM of Rajasthan, Shri Kalra Mishra ji, Governor of Rajasthan, Srimati Vasundhara Raje ji, former CM. With this brief introduction, we would like to welcome CA Ruchi Gupta. Thank you, ma'am. The stage is yours.
Thank you so much, Akshayji, for the wonderful introduction. Can I share my screen, please?
Sure.
Okay. Hello, everyone. I think it's a great opportunity to learn something new other than from your regular practice. I think most of us basically focus on core practice areas, maybe statutory audits, maybe bank audits, concurrent audits, stock audit, and also some of the company area, maybe GST filing, income tax return filing, various forms filing, etc. But probably we do not focus on area which is new and maybe rewarding as well. In fact, more rewarding than the traditional practice. So internal audit, we are talking majorly on internal audit today. There are many other areas that we can start or maybe focus on to get more and more work from different companies. But today, let's talk about internal audit. How can internal audit be your practice area? And why is it more rewarding? And the question comes, how can you actually enter into internal audit? Because company itself probably will not come, or in case company issues a tenders, you may not be able to qualify. So it is you who has to identify the areas, who has to identify the places we can actually implement internal audits or internal controls and enter into the internal audit practice. So hello everyone. As I mentioned that as an auditor, we always focus on revenue recognition, सही से हुआ है कि नहीं हुआ है, statutory liabilities, whether paid in time, no disallowances, ये सब चीजें we are always focusing on while we are doing audit. Inventory valuation we are doing because now it is mandatory and as per accounting standards we follow that. Debtors and creditors balance reconciliation, since we have seen a lot of fraud cases in the past times. So this is again one of the very focused area while we perform audits. And there are many, right? In fact, we follow all the accounting standards and auditing standards as per CARO, as per Companies Act, we follow everything, right? So let's go back and see. We have accounting standards, 27 accounting standards. I don't think any accounting standard talk about internal controls or internal audit, right? Then we have auditing standards. We have total 37 auditing standard that we are following while we are into audit. There is one auditing standard, SA610, which talks about using the work of internal audit. Means internal audit is there. Internal audit company के लिए mandatory है, company को करना है, right? That is why this essay is there, that using the work of internal audit. So internal audit itself is a practice area the way you can focus on. Now, things have totally changed now. We now have a lot of regulators on us. Earlier, we were only reporting to company, we are only doing Companies Act filing. We were only reporting to SEBI, RBI maybe, or we are doing income tax compliances. But now we can see that NAFRA is there, ICAI Ethical Standard Board is there, Quality Review Board is there. disciplinary committee is there, and many other committees are there who constantly, monitor the performance of chartered accountants and who are continuously into a fact that auditors should be independent. Auditors has to report independently, right? And we are now focused on delivering true and fair view in a reasonable manner. Let's go back into one second. Okay, so let's go back into the difference between statutory and internal audits. What we are not doing, and probably what we can do through internal audit. As we all know that in statutory audit, we are majorly focused on financial statements review. But when we talk about internal audit, it is more than financial statements. I'll show you a draft of the audit reports, audit report, which is as per Caro, and I will show you how many times they asked us to follow the internal controls, to follow the internal audit procedures. And I'm not sure how many of us actually perform the internal audit while we are on the client place to do statutory audit. I cannot say that it is not in our scope. When we are reporting that internal controls has been met, all the required procedures has been taken into mind while reporting. So it means that internal audit is required preliminary as well. मतलब कुछ ना कुछ तो करना ही है. At least some internal audit, internal controls has to be checked while performing statutory audit as well, because we are reporting that. But I'm not sure how many of us actually check those controls while doing the statutory audit, because limitation of time is always there, right? In that case, it is the best way to consider internal audit as a separate assignment at all. You have to, actually reach out to your clients who are not mandatorily required to do internal audits to go into the internal audit things. Ensure them, advise them that internal audit is a good practice. If you do this, you will be your reporting is more accountable, more reliable, okay, more acceptable in the eyes of the stakeholders. So when we talk about statutory audit, it is all about financial statements review, because we generally report the financial statement assurance. When we talk about internal audit, it is about financial as well as operating effectiveness. Okay, operational as well we have to consider. In statutory audit, we always focus on following the statutory guidelines, accounting standards, auditing standards, as I already mentioned earlier. While in internal audit, what we do is we ensure that the policies made by the management, the work done by the management, or maybe the work listed or the procedures listed by the management is being taken care. They are doing it accurately. That is what internal audit is about. Then it is a statutory audit is a more of a financial audit, while internal audit is a process audit. We ensure that the procedure that has been followed to process a particular transaction or maybe to do a particular activity is correct, right? The steps that has been laid down by the management, or maybe the guidelines that has been given by the management, or the as per the company policy has been followed. So that is a process audit basically. Now, as you all know, statutory audit is a bit risky right now. We have NEFRA guidelines. Then we have, we are looking at the cases. Probably, every week we see a new case that this CA has been penalized for this work, or maybe this kind of things. Internal audit is comparatively not that risky. I would not say it is not risky. I would not say that we do not carry an obligation for this. But yes, it is not as risky as statutory audit. Okay. As on a lighter part, in statutory audit, we get a yearly fee, one-time fee, but internal audit is a quarterly activity. Okay, unless you actually enter with the client an agreement that he will pay you annually, or maybe you decide an annual fee. Otherwise, if you see the limited companies where internal audit is mandatory, it is a quarterly practice and you are billed quarterly. So it's a regular income. It's a quarterly income now, recurring income. And you have seen this thing in many of your cases in your clients, that once the statutory auditor is appointed, there is a resistance from client side to change the statutory auditor, because generally an auditor knows everything. So client is generally reluctant to say that, no, we cannot change the auditor. We are dependent on him. He knows everything in and out of my business. Everything is exposed to him. So we cannot change the statutory auditor. But internal auditor can be changed as per the requirement. Probably we got internal audit, but we are not able to perform maybe some internal controls that are required expertise, and we are not able to deliver. The client might change, and it is okay. because it requires expertise. And as Akshay mentioned in the beginning itself, that internal audits nowadays with this AI platforms, with AI technology, is difficult, is getting more trendier now, because you have to now, it cannot be manual, it cannot be on a simple usage of Excel, or maybe simple use of applications. It has to be more digitized, it has to be more upgraded one. So AI has to be there to improve the performance. So you may not, some CA might not be able to satisfy that requirement, or some person who is already appointed as internal audit may not be able to satisfy that requirement. You may enter into that if you are aware of the requirements, AI tools, or maybe technology that is required by the business. So internal audit, if you're not able to enter the statutory auditor of any place, you may pitch for internal audit. I have seen cases wherein a company was looking for professional for employment purpose. I mean, they wanted to employ any person for a particular work and some certain control setup or certain work. And that person, being a CA, he said, I do not want to be employed, but you can hire me as a consultant. I can help you, improvise your work and add value to your work. So through internal audit. So that is the kind of, experience, that is the kind of exposure you need for that. Okay, so what is internal audit all about? Why internal audit? Internal audit is basically everything independent. So it is nothing to related with statutory audit. It is totally independent, and it provides an independent assurance because complete separate set of team does the internal audit from the statute. Statutory बिल्कुल अलग होगा, stock audit कोई और कर रहा होगा, internal audit will be done by a separate team altogether. So internal audit provides an independent assurance on the effectiveness of internal controls. Very important word, internal control. Within the organization, how the organization is performing, how the organization follow procedures, follow the rules, that is internal control. How a particular work is being done in an organization is internal controls. Okay, so it is providing independent assurance because a separate team is there on the effectiveness of internal controls, that internal procedures being followed by the company, what are the effectiveness of that procedure. And risk management process. There was a question for me in risk management process. I'll cover that later. So risk management process. Risk management process. Whenever the word risk management process comes, those charged with governance is a term that you have to always remember. This is an assurance that the people who are at the top level, who are at the management level, they are not collaborated with the employees, they're not collaborated within the organizations, and both are working independently, and those charged with governance are performing good, they are doing right thing. Okay, so risk management process, there is no risk in the organization. That is the purpose of the internal audit, that there is no collaboration, there is no fraud inside the organization. That is the reason internal audit is important. Okay, and to achieve the common organization objectives, of course, everything is being done to achieve the organization objective. There is no need of internal audit if the purpose is not to achieve the organization objectives. Okay, so internal audit process rotates around organizational objectives only. So to ensure that organization is achieving their objectives in a right manner, in an appropriate manner, we can get the internal audit done. As I mentioned, there are few terms that is important in internal audit. One is independence. Independence should be there. If there is no independence, there is no point of getting the internal audit done. If there is a company and it hires a team that is known to the company management, to the employees of the company itself, and they are collaborated, there is no point of getting the internal audit done. Already they are influenced by the management or the employees or the staff or the head of the department, so there is no point of getting the internal audit done. So independence has to be there, because the person should be able to report independently that yes, there are some controls missing, yes, there is some problem in the organization. That person should be able to report that. Okay, internal control and risk management. Internal controls has to be checked in the internal audit. That is very much important. Let me just show you an audit report wherein we talk about internal controls, we talk about internal setup, internal audit many a times in our audit report. And then the governance, of course, those charged with governance are adequate. They are not doing anything wrong, right? Organizational objectives has to be there. Okay, let me just show you the audit report once. Okay. See, I'm showing you an audit report. It's a draft audit report, nothing related to any company. I have searched the word internal. You see how many times internal control, internal financial control, internal thing is mentioned. It means that we are supposed to follow internal controls in an organization while we are doing statutory audit. Means it is our responsibility to see that yes, internal controls are not effective, right? They are adequate. See, and in fact, I have highlighted one point. Implementation, so it is under the head management's and board of directors responsibility for the financial statement. जिसमें हम management से एक representation भी लेते हैं that everything जो भी आप हमें share कर रहे हो, whatever is being shared by you, the financial statement that has been prepared by you are adequate. इसमें कोई misstatement नहीं है. There is no fraud into it. What these all management representation we take from management, and then we give a disclosure in our audit report. Let me just read out: implementation and maintenance of adequate internal financial controls that were operating effectively for the ensuring the accuracy and completeness of the accounting records की management की responsibility है to ensure कि implement हुआ है और adequate controls हैं within the organization जिससे कि completeness और accuracy हुई है accounting records की, right? तो मैनेजमेंट की जब रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी आती है तो देन इट्स अ रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी ऑफ मैनेजमेंट ऑल्सो टू हायर एन इंटरनल कंट्रोल टीम, इंटरनल ऑडिट टीम, सो दैट they can ensure कि yes internal controls are duly followed, internal जो रिस्क है वो नहीं है, there is no risk, और फ्रॉड्स होने के चांसेस नहीं है या फिर है तो बहुत मिटिगेट किए गए हैं और कंट्रोल्स हैं इनको मिटिगेट करने के. So see, internal. We are also saying obtain an understanding of internal control relevant to the audit in order to design audit procedures, right? We are saying that internal control observation भी करना है आपको while doing audit. We are doing internal control analysis as well. हम समझते हैं कि internal controls कैसे लगे हुए हैं कंपनी में. obtain an understanding of internal relevant to the audit, okay? और देखते हैं क्या बोलते हैं हम अपने audit report में. We communicate with those charged with governance regarding, among others, matters, the planned scope and timing of the audit and significant audit findings, including any significant deficiency in internal control that we identify during our audit. कि हमने अगर कोई controls weak देखे हैं तो हमने उसको deficiencies को management को बताया है. So this is under the head. Once again, as a part of the audit, in accordance with essays, we exercise professional judgment and maintain professional skepticism. मतलब हम we are saying that we are doing this, we have done this, right? We are ensuring management कि हमने ये सब चीजें follow की हैं. अगर कहीं गलती हुई है तो हमने इसको inform किया है. Adequacy of internal financial controls पे हम report कर रहे हैं. If you can see. Internal audit system की बात कर रहे हैं under section 138 of the act. According to the information given to us, the company is not required to have an internal audit system. I'll show you the section of companies act जहाँ पे mandatory होता है और अगर नहीं mandatory है उस पे applicable नहीं है तो दूसरी reporting दी है कि यहाँ पे applicable नहीं है. So again I'm saying that unless you know कि इंटरनल ऑडिट एप्लीकेबल है कि नहीं है, इंटरनल ऑडिट फॉलो होता है कि नहीं होता है, इंटरनल कंट्रोल सेटअप है कि नहीं, यू कैन नॉट इवन गिव योर एक्सप्लेनेशन और मे बी योर ऑब्जर्वेशन टू दी discloses itself. So see how important it is, right? So let's come back. Now the question comes, where all the internal audit is mandatory and where not. Okay? So for every listed company, we all are aware कि हर listed company को internal audit करवाना पड़ता है. It is mandatory for all listed company. I am sure that every listed company is following the practice of hiring an internal audit team and getting internal audit done. But how efficient that internal audit is also important, right? So in case you are a statutory auditor of a listed company, you should see, in fact, you have to see the internal audit reports. And in case you see that there are certain disclosures, or maybe there are certain observations, or maybe there are certain work that internal auditors should do to ensure the proper reporting, you can always highlight and ask the internal auditor to do that. You can give you can give an observation in writing, or maybe you can recommendation in writing to the internal auditor to also follow these following steps while you are doing the internal audit, because they are more regular into the business. You are going there to audit after the year end, right? After everything has been done. But they are going regularly. Maybe every quarterly they are doing the audit report, internal audit. So they are following more regularly. So they are supposed to check few things. And in case you are feeling that the company is not following, you have a right to recommend that auditors that you should follow these all things as well. And this is how you can also enter into the company internal things. And you can also recommend certain changes required in the internal audit process. So every listed company is required to have internal audit done. Then every unlisted public company, okay, whose paid up share capital is 50 crore rupees or more in the preceding financial year. It is important, preceding financial year. पिछले financial year में उसकी share capital, paid up share capital 50 crores या उससे ज़्यादा थी तो उसको कराना पड़ेगा. और turnover of 200 crore rupees or more in the preceding financial year. Again, पिछले financial year में उसकी turnover 200 crore या उससे ज़्यादा थी तो उसको भी audit कराना पड़ेगा. Outstanding loans और borrowing, मतलब जो loans दिखते हैं हमारे from banks और public financial institutions. Okay. Others से नहीं या unsecured नहीं. Outstanding loans or borrowing from banks or public financial institutions exceed 100 crore rupees. तो भी उसको internal audit कराना mandatory हो जाता है. ठीक है. या फिर हमारे डिपॉजिट्स, हमने यहाँ की बात की तो यहाँ की बात कर लेते हैं एसेट साइड की. हमारे आउटस्टैंडिंग डिपॉजिट्स ऑफ 25 करोड़ रुपीज और मोर एट पॉइंट ऑफ टाइम ड्यूरिंग द फाइनेंशियल, मतलब किसी पॉइंट पे भी हुआ पूरे साल में एक दिन भी आपकी 25 करोड़ रुपीज और मोर हो गया तो आपको करवाना पड़ेगा. ठीक है. Now, this is what we talked about public limited company. Let's also talk about private limited companies. Private companies के केस में क्या audit mandatory है? Only in this case. उसके अलावा अब voluntary है, करवा सकते हैं. If you have a client जो आपका private company है और उनके पास नहीं है, but you feel that internal audit should be there, you cannot do, because you cannot do if you are already the statutory auditor, you cannot do internal audit, but you can always recommend them to get the internal audit done. So every private company having turnover of 200 crore rupees or more in the financial year, as I mentioned, limited company as well, outstanding loan or borrowings from the bank or financial institution exceeding 100 crore rupees or more at any point of time during the financial year, तो उनको भी audit करवाना mandatory है. बाकी सबके लिए ये advisory है, but not mandatory. Recommendatory जरूर है कि सबको करवाना चाहिए. इनफैक्ट बड़ी कंपनीज को तो करवाना ही चाहिए. And why I am saying so, because आजकल ऑलमोस्ट सबके पास कुछ ना कुछ क्लाइंट्स इस तरह के होते हैं, या फिर ऐसे क्लाइंट्स का हम कुछ ना कुछ काम करते हैं. हम हो सकता है स्टैट्यूटरी ऑडिट नहीं कर रहे होंगे, probably we are serving them in stock audit या any other work. So if you see an opportunity there, if you see that yes, it's a private company, but it is not mandatory on them to do internal audit, but there are huge chances. I'll show you various areas जहां पे आप internal audit recommend कर सकते हो. ठीक है. So in that case, you can also recommend those companies to get the internal audit done, probably from yourself or maybe any other person that you can also recommend. या फिर उनको लगता है, they also enter into through tender system or so. Now, do we know that there are certain standards or internal audit as well? The way we have accounting standards, where we have auditing standards, we also have some standards on internal audit that we are supposed to follow when we are doing internal audit. Is it mandatory? No. Is it recommendatory? Yes. It has been prescribed by ICI only, but it is just still recommendatory, not mandatory. Okay. But ICI has a plan to make it mandatory very soon, at least to limited companies. So what are the objectives? Why there are standards? Same way why we have standard for auditing, why we have standard for accounting, to ensure parallel work done by all. I mean, everybody is doing similar kind of work, right? There should be a way of comparison between the various auditors' work, right? That is the reason they also have standard for internal audit, to establish uniform evaluation criteria. Month on month, year on year, quarter on quarter, comparison भी तो करना है. How will you compare if you are doing audit in one manner, in some manner in one first quarter, in some another manner in another quarter? So how will you compare? You will not be able to compare, right? You have to compare. So there has to be some standard forms. So that is how it is, to ensure uniform evaluation criteria, methods and practices being followed, right? The standards are pronouncement which form the basis of conducting all internal audit activity. एक एग्जाम्पल गाइड्स की तरह है, गाइडलाइंस की तरह है, that you can perform this audit with this, right? You can follow these steps to do internal audit of this particular area. Inventory को control करने के लिए आप ये कुछ follow कर सकते हैं for inventory stock for debtors management. You can do this kind of audit. So this is some pronouncements designed to help the internal audit to discharge his responsibilities. At least उसमें ये भी है, if you go through the internal audit standards, you will get to know कितना एश्योरेंस इंटरनल ऑडिटर को देना है. इट इज ऑल्सो मेंशन देयर. You have standard internal audit standard wherein you have things like whether you are giving reasonable assurance or you are giving accurate assurance कि 100% सही होना चाहिए या फिर reasonably सही होना चाहिए. That kind of thing is also there in the auditing internal audit standards. So to help the auditor only, अल्टीमेटली ऑब्जेक्टिव तो यही है कि इंटरनल ऑडिटर को सपोर्ट मिले, ऐसा ना हो कि अनड्यू प्रेशर और अनड्यू रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटीज उस पर क्रिएट हो सके. These SIA should be read in conjunction with previous to standards on internal audit. ये भी आपको फॉलो करना है, एनीवेज आपको करना है previous to standard internal audit, framework governing internal audit and basic principles of internal audit. For your awareness, there are 19 standards prescribed till now, and SIAs, as I mentioned, is recommendatory, not mandatory till now. Okay, you have a choice to follow them, but it is advisable to follow them so that you have the parity in the work. Now, these standards are a set of minimum requirements that apply to all members of ICI while performing internal audit of any entity or body corporate. Of course, बनाए ICI नहीं है, at least ICI member has to follow it. Other members, because as you all know that internal audit is not restricted to CAs. CAs के अलावा cost accountants भी internal audit कर सकते हैं. Okay, statutory audit सिर्फ CAs कर सकते हैं, but internal audit कॉस्ट अकाउंटेंट्स और अदर प्रिस्क्राइब्ड पर्संस भी कर सकते हैं, अप्रूव्ड पर्संस भी कर सकते हैं. तो आईसीआई ने रिकमेंड किए तो आईसीआई मेंबर ऑलवेज हैव टू फॉलो दिस, बट is it mandatory to be followed by the non-ICI member as well, other professional as well? Not. It cannot be mandated on them, but yes, it is a recommendatory. Correct? As per section 138 of the Companies Act, as I mentioned, I'll show you the section where it is important to appoint an internal auditor. So as per section 138 of the Companies Act, the board of a company may, besides a chartered accountant, appoint a cost accountant or any professional to conduct internal audit. Okay? So cost accountant हो सकता है or any professional to conduct internal audit. The ICA recommends the adoption of SCI by non-members. Recommends, not mandatory. Okay, mandatory सिर्फ हम पे है जो हम चार्टर्ड से, लेकिन उनके ऊपर recommendatory है ताकि consistency बनी रहे रिपोर्टिंग में, सब एक जैसा काम दिखे. Okay. As I told you, it is very much clear that it will be mandatory very soon, but in a phased manner. सब पे एकदम से mandatory नहीं हो सकता है. It will be first mandatory to listed companies, as per जो कि required होती हैं to appoint internal auditor, as per section 138 of the Companies Act, and slowly and steadily it will be applicable on the rest of the Companies Act as well. I have just listed few of the series. I mean, these are the series of the internal audit standards. Okay, 100 series में जितने भी auditing internal audit standards आ रहे हैं, they talk about key concepts. 5 standards हैं इसमें. 200 series के जो internal audit standards हैं, जिसे हम SIAs बोलते हैं, they are about internal audit management, कैसे करना है. Okay, 300 to 400 series talks about conduct of audit assignments. करना, आपको conduct कैसे करना है. Once you have taken the audit assignment, how will you do it? 7 standards are there. Total 19 है, right? 500 series में जो होते हैं वो specialized area के बारे में बात करते हैं कि अगर आपको यहाँ fraud दिखा या ये हुआ, इस particular area को आपको कैसे manage करना है. 600 series talks about quality. That quality has to be there. It is not about कि आपको इस time period में करना है या ये करना है और ये mandatory ही ये करना है. It is about the quality as well. मतलब if you are giving a reasonable assurance to internal audit standards, then it has to be of some quality. And then miscellaneous matters are covered in 700 series. So there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 series, and then you have 7 series, and then you have 19 auditing standards, internal audit standards. Now, one particular internal audit standard I wanted to highlight. Let's talk about that. SIA 120 that talks about internal controls. As I told you, किसी भी ऑर्गेनाइजेशन में if you want to see the opportunity कि क्या हम internal controls में या internal audit में enter हो सकते हैं, then you have to see whether the company is following proper internal controls or not. अगर आपको वहां पे problem लगती है, then you can always recommend internal audit there, right? And so internal SIA 120 talks about internal controls, that every corporate, every entity should maintain their internal controls. Systematic and procedural steps adopted by organization to mitigate risk. And what are internal controls basically? है क्या, क्यों है internal controls? Basically steps adopted by the organization to mitigate risk. For example, चेक सिस्टम होता है, कुछ चेकलिस्ट होती है, वर्क फ्लो होता है, एक से अथोराइजेशन लेवल्स होते हैं, एंड दीज ऑल आर थिंग्स टू मिटिगेट रिस्क कि कहीं पे फ्रॉड ना हो, कोलैबोरेशन ऑफ पीपल हो कि फ्रॉड ना हो जाए, तो डिफरेंट डिफरेंट चेक्स लगा दिए जाते हैं इन पर्टिकुलर प्रोसेस, एंड दैट इज व्हाट इट इज अबाउट मिटिगेटिंग रिस्क. Another thing talks about internal controls that mitigate risk of the financial exposure. Okay, internal financial controls, as I told earlier as well. इंटरनल कंट्रोल्स दोनों के लिए होते हैं, एक फाइनेंशियल एंड देन ऑपरेशनल, दोनों के लिए इंटरनल ऑडिट होता है, फाइनेंशियल प्रोसेस को देखने के लिए भी एंड प्रोसीजरल या फिर हम जिसे बोलते हैं ऑपरेशनल प्रोसेस को देखने के लिए भी इंटरनल ऑडिट होता है, राइट. एंड पर्टिकुलर कंट्रोल्स दैट मिटिगेट रिस्क ऑफ फाइनेंशियल एक्सपोजर की अमाउंट्स कहीं पे गलत नहीं है, फिगर्स गलत नहीं है, फ्रॉड इन टर्म्स ऑफ मनी नहीं हुआ है, दैट इज ऑल अबाउट इंटरनल फाइनेंशियल कंट्रोल्स. एंड द कंट्रोल्स दैट टॉक अबाउट मिटिगेशन ऑफ द ऑपरेशनल रिस्क कि ऑपरेशनली तो गलत नहीं है, टीम ही तो गलत नहीं है, मैनेजमेंट में तो कमी नहीं है, या फिर यू कैन से एम्प्लॉइज तो मिसगाइड नहीं कर रहे हैं. These all are things comes under operational control. Okay. Overall responsibility for designing, assessing the adequacy, implementing, and maintaining the operating effectiveness of internal controls is of board of directors and the management. As I told you, हमने ऑडिट रिपोर्ट देखी थी जिसमें साफ लिखा था इट इज द रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी ऑफ द मैनेजमेंट टू इंश्योर कि जो इंटरनल कंट्रोल्स है वो लगाए हुए हैं और वो इंश्योर करना कि ये प्रॉपरली काम भी कर रहे हैं, दैट इज ऑल मैनेजमेंट. बट डज दैट मीन कि एक ऑडिटर इससे बच सकता है बीइंग अ चार्टर्ड अकाउंटेंट? क्या आपको लगता है कि आपको जरूरत ही नहीं है इंटरनल कंट्रोल्स चेक करने की? आप पे एप्लीकेबल ही नहीं है, यू आर नॉट कंसर्न कि कैसे होता है नीचे टीम में काम कैसे हो रहा है, कंपनी कैसे काम करे, you are just worried about the financials. No, it is our responsibility as an auditor to ensure कि जो वहां पे कोई फ्रॉड नहीं है, राइट, कोई चेक्स को मिसगाइड नहीं कर रहा है, कोई जो लिमिट्स हैं या ऑथराइजेशंस हैं उसको ब्रेक नहीं कर रहा है कोई, एंड दैट कैन ओनली बी सीन थ्रू द इंटरनल कंट्रोल सेट अप बाय द ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस. सो जब भी हम किसी ऑर्गेनाइजेशन का ऑडिट करने जाते हैं तो फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल व्हाट वी डू इज वी अंडरस्टैंड द बिजनेस, वी अंडरस्टैंड द प्रोसेस, फ्लो चार्ट्स बनाते हैं, वी अंडरस्टैंड कि कैसे कैसे ट्रांजेक्शन्स आगे मूव होती हैं, लेवल्स क्या है ऑथराइजेशन की, वी अंडरस्टैंड कि हेड्स कौन है, प्रोसेस हेड्स कौन है, क्या राइट्स है उनके पास, कैसे ओवरराइड हो सकते हैं वो राइट्स. These all are internal controls that are set up by the company, and we have to ensure that these internal controls are working properly. Okay, these are working properly, and there is no break of the internal controls during the entire procedure, right? अगर आपको लगता है कि कहीं इंटरनल कंट्रोल्स में इशू है या फिर यू कैन सेंस फ्रॉड और ये सेंस कोई फिशी कुछ दिख रहा है आपको, then you should report in your report. Okay. Okay, so very important topic. Now we are on to examples of industries where internal controls plays a very important role. Let's talk about few industries wherein you can always see and look up to internal control role. Right, hospital industry, e-commerce seller, huge outside sourcing, government organizations, manufacturing units. These are just a few list of industries wherein one need to thoroughly check the internal controls because there are huge risk of frauds, misstatement, collaboration with employees in this kind of industries. The reason first is because there are huge transactions, count is very much. Second is they are very fast and regular work is there in these kind of industries. Whether we talk about hospital industry, we talk about e-commerce seller, we talk about outsourcing, outside sourcing work, or you talk about government organizations, manufacturing units, huge work is there, and per day work is also very much. In kind of, for example, in hospital industry, regular there are cash management. Daily, a lot of cash is being received by the hospital. A lot of billing has been done. A lot of patient footfall is there, and then everything is dependent on the front end, right? person who is doing back-end accounting, he cannot sense if there is some weakness in the internal control at the front side, because a lot of customer interaction is with there at the people sitting at the front end. Okay, so in this kind of automation, a lot of frauds can be found, a lot of revenue leakage could be found, right? And that is the reason internal controls are very important in this kind of industries. Okay. Similarly, in e-commerce industry, everything is online. Returns are there, orders are there, huge orders are there, returns are there, and that is why, when numerous transactions are there, chances of frauds are there, chances of errors are there, chances of collaboration are there. Okay. एंड गवर्नमेंट ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस की है तो हम बात डिटेल में कर ही नहीं सकते, इनफैक्ट करना ही नहीं चाहेंगे, बिकॉज वी अंडरस्टैंड पीपल जहाँ भी जो अथॉरिटी नहीं होती है वहां पे ज्यादा फ्रॉड्स होते हैं. ऑफकोर्स फ्रॉड्स कहाँ पे होंगे? जहाँ पे अथॉरिटी नहीं है, या फिर जहाँ पे कंट्रोल्स बहुत ज्यादा है वहां पे भी फ्रॉड्स होते हैं, बिकॉज देन एवरी सॉरी because wahan pe everybody tries to break that controls and people collaborate there, and that is why frauds happen. And I tell you, frauds wahi hote hain jahan collaboration ho pata hai. इसीलिए भी रिवैम्पिंग बहुत जरूरी होती है, रीशफलिंग बहुत जरूरी होती है एम्प्लॉइज की एंड ऑल, सो दैट फ्रॉड्स कुड नॉट बी देयर. एंड देन इन काइंड ऑफ मैन्युफैक्चरिंग इंडस्ट्रीज डेफिनेटली, बिकॉज प्रोक्योरमेंट बहुत ज्यादा है, वेंडर्स बहुत ज्यादा है, तो इन काइंड ऑफ इंडस्ट्रीज में भी फ्रॉड हो सकता है. Okay, so while we talk about individual industries in some time, because I have actually done internal audits in all these companies, and we have actually identified a lot of areas where fraud could be there, or या फिर how employees there or maybe management there, or sorry.
ऐसे का खबर करना है.
Okay. One second. Okay, so management might provide. So that is the reason you can see fraud in a lot of the organizations, or maybe internal controls are required in that kind of organization. Now, let's also talk about in our regular statutory audit work, where all we are supposed to check whether internal controls are working or not. So when we talk about transaction processing, we are talking about revenue recognition. When we talk about inventory valuation, when we talk about debtors and creditors reconciliation, we need to check whether the corporate has right internal controls procedure at that point of time as well, because that also impact the financials that we are getting from the clients, right? So there also internal control is important. Internal check should be done and should be ensured that yes, there is no collaboration of employees, there is no misstatement lying there. I'm not sure how much of us actually goes with this kind of eye when we go for audit. In fact, we also do not go with this kind of eye everywhere, because we are having limited time and we have to complete the audit in a limited period of time. So probably we do not, check into the processing kind of work. I mean, till बिल्कुल नीचे आते ही processing level पे हम check नहीं करते हैं. We only check the upper side of any work. How if the balances are coming, then we just take the balance confirmation. Debtors में यही करते हैं, we take balance confirmations. What we do is we in inventory we take the valuation report. What we do is we check the software processing देख लेते हैं, right? These are all things we do, but we do not actually check बिल्कुल starting level पे, first level पे काम कैसे हो रहा है. There could be some misses. Intentional hiding of data भी हो सकता है, right? वो सब चीजें we do not check. GST की returns हम file करते हैं. What we do is we take data from client and we just process the returns, right? We put data into our softwares and file the returns. We do not check whether client is doing right billing or not. We do not check whether the purchase invoices are actually invoices from the purchases only, or maybe the dummy invoices. We do not check whether the vendors are right or not. Okay, we do not ensure that whether vendors are dummy vendors or not, right? And that is why you will be seeing few news in every few days that this company had dummy vendors, dummy payments दिखाए हुए थे, dummy ledgers created थे, and all these kind of things comes out because the internal checks has not been considered. There were no right placement of internal controls in the organization, right checks नहीं थे organization में while creating vendor account. So बहुत ज़्यादा scope है in this kind of area, जहाँ पे huge vendors हैं, huge outsourcing है, because कुछ डमी जहाँ पे बहुत सारे एम्प्लॉयज है, बीपीओज हैं, कॉलिंग इंडस्ट्रीज हैं यहाँ पे, बिकॉज डमी एम्प्लॉयज बहुत होते हैं, बहुत शो हो सकते हैं, दे हैव द कैपेबिलिटी, होते हैं नहीं होते दैट इज डिफरेंट, बट दे हैव they have the option to do that, right? So in these kind of companies, thorough checks has to be done in payroll, thorough checks has to be done in payments. There should be structure of payment, vendor को check करना, sample basis में vendor creation check करना, count check karna, variance analysis karna, that is all part of our work when we do audit of any these kind of industries जहाँ पे बहुत ज्यादा काउंट होता है फॉर एवरी ट्रांजेक्शन, राइट? या फिर ट्रांजेक्शन मल्टीपल हैंड से प्रोसेस होकर नहीं आती है, चेकर एंड मेकर सेम होते हैं या फिर नियर बाय होते हैं, तो वहां पे भी these kind of checks plays a very important role. Okay, so these kind of work is there in internal audit. You can check the internal controls, you can implement internal controls. I'll give you an example. We have set up internal controls in few of the entities till now, and what we have done is we have ensured that we have checked that there are huge leakage of revenue because the counting team follows what has been taught to them, or maybe what is known to them. Maybe the counting team which is sitting at the client end may not be that effective. They're not that aware, they're not that updated, so maybe they are missing a lot of revenue. So I'll give you an example of e-commerce seller, and already you would agree that e-commerce is a big practice this time, and in e-commerce there is a huge challenge in reconciliation with the e-commerce operator, huge challenge in payment recovery, huge challenge in inventory management with the e-commerce operator, example Amazon and all. I mean, if you have clients, go through the clients accounting of an e-commerce seller, you will find a great challenge in reconciling all the items, because they are actually not following a particular procedure, they are not following the proper management, they are not doing reconciliation regularly, and that is why they have a lot of issues in that. And you will find an issue. I am guaranteeing that, because we have a lot of clients which are e-commerce seller, and we are facing issue with every client, because in our books we always see that we have dues from the e-commerce operator, and their books in their books they see us as dues from us. You will always see that. And I'll give an example in e-commerce seller. What happens is we receive something from them in return of the selling that we have done through the operator, right? At the same time, there are some commission invoices at the e-commerce operator end. They regularly keep on issuing invoices, penalty invoices, commission invoices, and many other charges, stock charges, delivery charges, a lot of charges, penalties are there from their end. They keep on adding invoices to us, and it is not delivered to our mailbox, neither it is couriered to us, it is only on the portal, right? E-commerce portal पे ही हमको दिखता है. We have to go there, we have to log in, we have to go to the right place, path, and then we have to download the commission charges, commission invoices, charges invoices and all, and we have to understand the calculation on ourselves, right? There is nobody to explain you what is this about. So in that case, you would only be able to find their invoices either in GST portal, right, or in the e-commerce portal. There is no email, nothing happening. So now understand, when there are a lot of segregation of work, a person who is independently doing work with the e-commerce operator, then there is a person who is independently managing inventory, then there is a person who is independently adding these invoices into the system, and then it's a payment. There is a person who is independently making payment to the e-commerce operators, and then a person like us, charters, who are filing returns for these e-commerce sellers. There is no collaboration amongst them. There is no reconciliation of payments amongst them. I have seen a client who has not entered any of the commission invoices in their books for like 2 to 3 years, because the CA who was filing the return is never informed that there are certain commission invoices in your to be line, and you have not received it, you have not shown in books, and there were commission invoices lying there, and they have not shown that in their expenses itself. So see, these kind of things can happen when there are a lot of segregation of work as well. So proper, appropriate segregation of work, appropriate checks, appropriate internal controls has to be there, and it is a great area to work upon. Believe me, internal audit is a great area. Payment bhi acha milta hai because in this you find something, राइट. स्टैट्यूटरी ऑडिट यू डू पोस्टमार्टम है, सब कुछ कर दिया है, अब तो जो है इसको कर दो, क्लाइंट कहते हैं इसको एडजस्ट कर दो, जो भी कर दो, जितनी हम पेनल्टीज क्रिएट कर सकते हैं हम कर देते हैं, पोस्ट फैक्टो है ये सारा. इंटरनल ऑडिट इज ड्यूरिंग दी प्रोसेस ओनली, राइट. आपने 3 महीने शायद कोई गलती कर दी, नेक्स्ट 3 months आप उसको करेक्ट करा सकते हो बिकॉज यू आर अगेन डूइंग दैट. यू कैन रिकमेंड देम दैट नो यू आर नॉट डूइंग इट इन राइट मैनर. यू कैन actually and it is more rewarding to you as well. You can actually bring some change, you can actually bring up client को benefit दे सकते हो with internal audits, and you can see an opportunity there at client space. So मेरा suggestion बस यही है कि it will not come to you automatically. Definitely internal audit की awareness, not even clients have that awareness. Client himself will not come to you and say कि take my internal audit assignment. You have to be while you're doing audit of a client, you have to be very much aware that yes, whether the client is following the practices or not. If not, then you recommend that client. Probably you yourself cannot take that assignment, somebody else can take that assignment, but yes, at least there is one more opportunity at client end to work on, right? So again, internal controls setup is a big area to work upon. काफी rewarding है, especially in an industry who is struggling with the financials. I'll give an example of another industry who was struggling to file GST returns for a longer period. मतलब every month they were delaying, and they were delaying for like 6-7 months every month. मतलब आज वो जनवरी के भर रहे हैं, इस तरह की सिचुएशन होती थी. And the reason behind is कि it was a huge company, export company थी, huge company थी, बहुत ज्यादा इनवॉइसेस का काउंट बहुत ज्यादा था, वेंडर पेमेंट बहुत ज्यादा था, इन्वेंट्री मैनेजमेंट एक चैलेंज था, एंड बिकॉज ऑफ ऑल दिस शिपिंग बिल्स प्रॉपर नहीं बन पाते थे, रिकॉन्सिलेशन नहीं हो पाता था, एंड बिकॉज ऑफ दैट दे वर ऑलवेज डिलेइंग जीएसटी रिटर्न्स, ऑलवेज, राइट. 4-5 मंथ्स बैक चलते थे हमेशा, एंड 4-5 मंथ्स जब आप बैक चलते हो तो आप इतना कैपेसिटी नहीं होता कि आप एरर को पकड़ पाओ, राइट. यू आर नॉट इवन इन अ पोजीशन, बिकॉज जो चीज थी वो तो हो चुकी है. Vendors change job because these kind of industries, when there are huge vendors and huge customers both, right? आपने कोई error 6 महीने बाद पकड़ भी लिया तो what will you do of that error? You are no longer associated with that vendor or maybe customer, right? So in that case, we have given them a benefit of approximately 20 lakhs in just 6 months, and that is because we identified their revenue leakages there because of non-doing things on time, because of the delay they were doing. They were losing benefits, right? So I'm just telling you that you have to explore the opportunity yourself at a client base. Internal controls, internal audit setup, it is mandatory only for limited companies for now, or some specific category of private limited companies, but it is recommendatory. Recommend your clients, recommend not even your clients to a person who is not your client, but you're doing some kind of work for them, or you are aware of that. Yes. And one more thing I tell you, one way to actually identify if there is an opportunity for internal audit or not is to read out the balance sheets of different companies. If there is a qualification, if there is a highlight of any point, observation in a report, you can actually find out if there is a need of internal audit or not. If the internal audit is being done, if it is being done accurately or not, you have fair chances to reach to those companies. It's a very good way to identify the internal audit work. That is again one thing. And in case any, you can also consultancy thing you can start, in which you can always say that we help you to re-establish your business. We help you to restable your business with a new process, with a new method at all. So some businesses who are struggling, I'll give an example. Gems and jewelry industries, they have a lot of compliances, they have a lot of labor compliances, labor laws, they have a lot of statutory compliances, एक्साइज लगता है, ये सब चीजें होती हैं, मतलब बहुत सारी कंप्लाइंसेस होती हैं। एंड देन एक्सपोर्ट्स होते हैं उनके, तो और भी शिपिंग बिल एंड ऑल ये सब चीजें भी रहती हैं, ठीक है, और एक्सपोर्ट ड्यूटीज, एक्सपोर्ट सब कुछ लगता है इनको। सो दे हैव ह्यूज कंप्लाइंसेस and they have team for that, but still they struggle a lot with the timely processing of work, timely processing of returns, because they are always burdened with the compliances, correct? So identify these kind of industries. You might have opportunities there as well. If you set up a process, it will be very easy for them to complete their things on time, and they will realize your importance. If you give them a benefit, if you give them some improvisation in their work, they will give you, they will definitely recognize your work, and they will give an opportunity. So these kind of work you have to explore yourself. And और इंटरनल ऑडिट्स कहाँ काम आ सकते हैं? Internal audits काम आ सकते हैं to give the better presentation of books. Maybe a client is actually performing some work within a traditional method, या कोई AI नहीं है, सब चीज मैनुअल हो रही है, कुछ ऑटोमेशन नहीं है, सॉफ्टवेयर नहीं है, you can actually help them set up new internal controls. नहीं है आज तक setup, you can always pitch in to set up internal controls. You can always pitch in to set up a new software there along with the new controls. So that is the kind of work also you can always explore for. And believe me, internal controls are always beneficial. Internal setup is always beneficial. It is how you actually pitch in, right? How you set up, correct? AI के आने के बाद तो it has now become easier. Internal controls, लेकिन easier हो गया है तो responsibility also you carry. Things have become difficult now. आप जो नीचे नीचे के लेवल को कन्विंस करना that you should set up particular this process, it's difficult now, correct? So that is how you have to see it. Now let's also talk about industries. As I told you कि industry wise हमारे लिए कैसे important है, हम कहाँ पे कौन से ऐसे areas हैं जहाँ पे हम ये ढूंढ सकते हैं. Hospitals must adhere to various regulations and standards. I'm not sure how many of you have actually worked in hospital industry at all. Hospitals को अपनी compliances, हमारी जो statutory compliances होती हैं, उसके अलावा भी और भी बहुत सारी reportings करनी पड़ती हैं, such as HIPA को. और जैसे कि जो भी departments होते हैं, government departments होते हैं, उनको ये reporting करनी पड़ती है कि हमारा जो staff है वो accurately काम करता है, या वो उनको हम overwork नहीं करवाते हैं, यहाँ पे ओवर टाइम्स इस लिमिट से ज्यादा नहीं होते हैं, या फिर इनको हम एडिक्वेटली सर्विसेज प्रोवाइड करते हैं, जैसे कैंटीन फैसिलिटी है, ये सब चीजें हैं, या फिर जो हम पेशेंट है उसको इतने दिन में या इतने आवर्स में हम उसको रूम दे देते हैं, या ये सब चीजें की रिपोर्टिंग भी होती है इन हॉस्पिटल इंडस्ट्री. It's a totally separate reporting to departments that are basically focused on quality by the hospital industries. So और ये बहुत होती हैं, because I have worked very closely with the hospital industry, जिसमें हमने बिल्कुल स्टार्टिंग से right from patient enter होता है till रिपोर्टिंग, रेगुलेटरी रिपोर्टिंग हो जाती है, जीएसटी रिटर्न चल जाती है, मैनेजमेंट रिपोर्टिंग, इतना काम हमने क्लोजली किया है. एंड वी अंडरस्टैंड हॉस्पिटल इंडस्ट्री बहुत काम है, एक्स्ट्रा काम है, भयंकर. मतलब दे आर ऑलवेज फ्लडेड विद वर्क बिकॉज दे आर डूइंग, पेशेंट का इनफ्लो बहुत ज्यादा होता है. एंड यू नो कि आजकल तो वैसे भी ज्यादा है, a lot of diseases because of. तो पेशेंट आता है, he checks into the counter, रिसेप्शन पे आता है, till the time from reception to डॉक्टर को मीट करने के बाद, पेमेंट के बाद, अगर सपोज वो टीपीए का पेशेंट है या फिर थर्ड पार्टी इंश्योरेंस ले रखा है उसने, कैशलेस होगा, उस पेमेंट को, उसके बिल्स जो है वो डिपार्टमेंट तक जाएंगे, जो भी इंश्योरेंस डिपार्टमेंट है वहां जाएंगे, फिर वहां पे चेक्स होंगे, पूरी हिस्ट्री जाएगी पेशेंट की, और फिर जाके पेमेंट आएंगे, राइट? और लॉट ऑफ आप साइकिल देखो कितनी बड़ी है, राइट? और ये साइकिल इज वेरी बिग साइकिल. मतलब पेशेंट का ऑपरेशन आज हुआ है और उसको इंश्योरेंस से पैसा मे बी 3 months बाद आएगा या 6 months बाद आएगा, करेक्ट? हॉस्पिटल को 6 महीने बाद पैसा आएगा. एंड इट्स अ बिग साइकिल, इट्स अ बिग साइकिल. एंड इतनी बड़ी साइकिल है और इतना बड़ा फॉलो अप है. द इंश्योरेंस कंपनी डू नॉट पे इजीली. A lot of follow-ups are being done. So you can set up an internal control there. You can set up checks there. इसके बाद ये फ्लो हो, इसके बाद ये हो. यहाँ पे आप ये देखो फ्रॉड चांसेस क्या है. There could be a possibility जो फ्रंट एंड पे जो स्टाफ बैठा है, रिसेप्शन पे है, चाहे बिलिंग काउंटर पे है या कुछ भी है, He might not bill any person in the bill, but he's taking something in cash. That kind of fraud can be there. That kind of appropriation, misappropriation of funds could be there. Revenue leakages हो सकते हैं. जो भी पेशेंट आता है वो बहुत सारे टेस्ट कराता है, रेडियोलॉजी टेस्ट कराता है, कार्डियो टेस्ट कराता है, बहुत सारे टेस्ट कराता है. यू कुड दे कुड बी अ पॉसिबिलिटी कि टेस्ट कराए 5 और बिलिंग सिर्फ 2 की होगी, रेस्ट उन्होंने कैश में ले लिया आफ्टर कोलैबोरेटिंग विद द पेशेंट कि ये टेस्ट तो 100 का या 500 का है, आई चार्ज ओनली 50 रुपीज if you do not show this test, or maybe kind of this, give me some in cash. So I'm telling you the extent of internal checks that is
Nidhi,
required in the hospital industry.
Yeah.
Please. You were saying anything? And I need to stop in between. Okay, maybe some disturbance. All right, so this is the kind of work in the hospital industry. So in case anybody of you are dealing with the hospital clients, please do go and give a glance at these things, whether they are following this kind of controls or not. बहुत रेवेन्यू लीकेज है, बहुत वहां पे बहुत अपॉर्चुनिटी है, बिलीव मी, लॉट ऑफ अपॉर्चुनिटीज देयर. मैंने कुछ लिस्ट डाउन किए हैं on basis of my experience. Hospital must adhere to various regulation standards such as those related to patient safety, privacy, billing practices, and quality of care. Okay, so these all reportings are done to certain departments, government departments हैं कुछ जो कि पेशेंट्स के वेलफेयर के लिए बने हुए हैं, तो उनको ये रिपोर्ट आउट करना होता है कि हमारे पेशेंट जो आता है उसको कैसी केयर दी जाती है. इंटरनल कंट्रोल्स रिलेटेड टू इन्वेंट्री मैनेजमेंट, फाइनेंशियल ट्रांजैक्शंस एंड एक्सेस टू सेंसिटिव पेशेंट इंफॉर्मेशन आर क्रिटिकल. नाउ यू अंडरस्टैंड दिस कि कितना इंपॉर्टेंट है इन्वेंट्री मैनेजमेंट. सो इफ अ पेशेंट इज एडमिटेड टू दी ओपीडी से आईपीडी में ट्रांसफर होता है, मतलब उसका ऑपरेशन हो रहा है या उसको केयर की जा रही है, क्रिटिकल केयर में ट्रांसफर हो रहा है, कुछ भी हो रहा है, a lot of procedures are being applied on the patient, right? उसकी सर्जरी हो रही है, उसकी टेस्ट हो रहे हैं, उसको मेडिसिन दी जा रही है, ड्रिप चल रही है, and all kind of things are done. If the recording of the procedures being done is not accurate, अगर इसका प्रोसेस कि कितना सामान अंदर आया आईसीयू के अंदर, कितना उस पर अप्लाई किया गया, कितना रिटर्न किया गया, अगर इसका मैनेजमेंट सही नहीं होगा तो यू कैन ऑलरेडी इमेजिन कितना ज्यादा चेंज हो सकता है बिलिंग में, राइट? कितनी इन्फ्लेट और डिफ्लेट हो सकती है बिलिंग. सो यू सी दैट कितना, मतलब हाउ इंपॉर्टेंट इंटरनल कंट्रोल्स आर दिस इन दिस काइंड ऑफ इंडस्ट्री. ठीक है. और देन एक्सेस टू सेंसिटिव पेशेंट इंफॉर्मेशन आर क्रिटिकल. You can always share the data with somebody else. सब पूरा डेटा पेशेंट का होता है, पूरी हिस्ट्री होती है, that can be misused, right? Hospitals handle significant financial transactions, including billing, payments, and disbursement. As I told you, a huge amount of transactions are there in hospitals. क्योंकि आज सारे हॉस्पिटल्स भरे हुए हैं, कभी भी चले जाओ, you will not find a bed in the hospital at all because patients are so much. इतनी बिलिंग होती है, इतना पेमेंट्स होते हैं. दे कुड बी मिस एप्रोप्रिएशन ऑफ फंड्स. नहीं दिखाए 2 पेशेंट तो फिर नहीं की 2 पेशेंट्स की बिलिंग, right? This could be a possibility. So though hospitals have a very good software, they've used a very different softwares, so those are specifically designed for the hospital, जिसमें जैसे ही एक पेशेंट चेक इन करता है, मतलब वो रिसेप्शन में आता है, तब से उसकी बिलिंग स्टार्ट हो जाती है और उसकी एंट्री स्टार्ट हो जाती है इन द सॉफ्टवेयर टिल द टाइम वो पेमेंट करके डिस्चार्ज हो जाता है और उसके जो बिल्स हैं वो थर्ड पार्टी या फिर इंश्योरेंस कंपनीज को चले नहीं जाते और पेमेंट आ नहीं जाता. इतनी ट्रैकिंग होती है, बट दैट ट्रैकिंग हैज टू बी सेट अप इन द इंडस्ट्री एज वेल. अगर हम सेटअप नहीं कर रहे हैं तो देयर कुड बी अ चांसेस ऑफ फ्रॉड एंड मिसएप्रोप्रिएशन. ठीक है. एक बार हम बात करते हैं ई कॉमर्स सेलर. एज आई टोल्ड यू कि बहुत बड़ी इंडस्ट्री है, ऑलमोस्ट एवरीबडी इज ऑन ई कॉमर्स टुडे. अगर कोई मैन्युफैक्चरर है तो ई कॉमर्स के थ्रू भी कर रहा होगा, नॉर्मल सेलिंग भी कर रहा होगा. अगर कोई मैन्युफैक्चरर नहीं है, ट्रेडर है, तो वो भी कर रहे हैं ई कॉमर्स सेलर के थ्रू. You look into you switch on the Facebook and you will see a lot of ads there. These all are e-commerce ads, right? हर कोई seller है आजकल e-commerce because it is a very easy platform to expand your business. So a lot of challenges comes when vendor management is come. So e-commerce का vendor management, e-commerce का procurement management, e-commerce का payment management, return management, customer management is very important. अगर यहाँ पे flaws आ गए तो there could be a huge chances of fraud or misappropriation. So you can recommend if you have a client who is an e-commerce seller You can always recommend internal control setup there. You can always recommend them. आप थोड़ा सा भी वहाँ स्टडी करोगे, एनालाइज करोगे, you will be able to find flaws there. So you can always recommend setting up internal controls, and that is very much appreciated by the clients. अगर आपको उनको लगा कि हाँ यार revenue leakage के chances है. Inventory management is very difficult for e-commerce seller, क्योंकि जो e-commerce seller होता है उसके कुछ inventory is lying at the warehouse, कुछ inventory is lying at their store only, कुछ inventory is in transit, कुछ is in return. A lot of management is there. So if a proper setup is there, for example, जब सामान आता है तो चलान कट रहा है, रिकॉर्ड हो रहा है सिस्टम में, सामान जा रहा है तो चलान कट रहा है, रिकॉर्ड हो रहा है सिस्टम में, एज एंड व्हेन इट इज रिटर्न, इट इज हाई प्रॉपर्ली अकाउंटेड फॉर, उसी रियल टाइम बेसिस पे उसकी एंट्री हो रही है. ऑल दीज थिंग्स इफ यू आर बीइंग टेकन केयर ऑफ, देयर आर वेरी लेस चांसेस ऑफ फ्रॉड्स. बट इन केस नहीं हो रहा है, then it's a big challenge, right? And you can always suggest internal audits or internal control implementation in these kind of organization. You will find a way out there, right? For example, I mentioned discount coupons वगैरह होते हैं. You will see online apps में discount coupons चलते हैं. मिस यूटिलाइजेशन हो सकता है, प्रॉपर यूटिलाइजेशन हो सकता है, कुछ भी हो सकता है, राइट? एनी पर्सन हु इज नॉट एलिजिबल, क्योंकि ये काम तो बैकएंड पे ही होता है ना अल्टीमेटली, राइट? Person can change the codes from the backend and actually give benefit to any other person. This kind of control is also required to be checked. मैं ये नहीं कह रही होगा नहीं, but it is needed to be checked. Sample basis पे check करना चाहिए. And यहाँ पे the best way is to set up workflows. एक ही पर्सन हर चीज ना करे. अब वन पर्सन इज इनिशिएटिंग. आज हमारे करंट अकाउंट की पेमेंट्स में तो 2 बार 3 बार फ्लोज में जाती ट्रांसफर होती है ना. एक बार इनिशिएट मेकर जो होता है वो इनिशिएट करता है, और एक बार चेकर जो होता है वो अप्रूव करता है, तो पेमेंट ट्रांसफर होती है. तो यहाँ पे भी वी हैव टू इंश्योर दैट प्रॉपर checks are there, proper workflows are there. A transaction is transferring or entering through after going through different cycles, right? सिर्फ ऐसे नहीं है कि एक पर्सन ने इनिशिएट किया और दूसरे ने उसको अप्रूव करके ट्रांजेक्शन क्लोज कर दिया. शुड नॉट बी देयर. नेक्स्ट इज इन्वेंट्री मैनेजमेंट. जैसा एज आई टोल्ड यू, बहुत चैलेंजेस है इन्वेंट्री मैनेजमेंट के. आप कंट्रोल करके देख लो, मैनेज करके देख लो, काउंट करके देख लो, यू विल ऑलवेज फाइंड, अगर उसका स्केल थोड़ा ज्यादा है, आई एम नॉट टॉकिंग अबाउट वेरी स्मॉल वेंडर या वेरी स्मॉल ई-कॉमर्स सेलर्स, अगर थोड़ा सा अच्छा स्केल है, यू आई कैन गारंटी यू विल नॉट बी एबल टू काउंट एंड मैनेज द इन्वेंट्री प्रॉपरली. सही मैच नहीं होता है बहुत टाइम पे, राइट? बिकॉज रिटर्न्स बहुत ज्यादा है एंड काउंट बहुत ज्यादा है. तो यहाँ पे ऑल्सो यू कैन प्ले अ वेरी गुड रोल, दैट यू कैन ऑलवेज सजेस्ट देम राइटिंग टाइम इन्वेंट्री या जस्ट इन टाइम इन्वेंट्री कॉन्सेप्ट हमने पढ़े हैं जो अकाउंटिंग्स में, कि या बता आप, यू कैन ऑलवेज हेल्प देम टू आइडेंटिफाई कि कितना काउंट या कितना वेरिएंस एनालिसिस करके कितनी इन्वेंट्री आपको चाहिए होती है, एंड हाउ मच इन्वेंट्री यू कैन एक्चुअली कीप, यू शुड एक्चुअली कीप. ओवर एक्सेस या फिर शॉर्ट नहीं होनी चाहिए, जितना भी चाहिए हमको. देन वैलिडेटिंग ट्रांजेक्शंस, क्योंकि ट्रांजेक्शंस बहुत होती हैं, वेंडर परचेज भी बहुत होता है और सेल भी बहुत होता है. तो ट्रांजेक्शंस अगर टाइमली अप्रूव नहीं हो रही है या प्रॉपरली अप्रूव नहीं हो रही है, चेक्स होके एवरी ट्रांजेक्शन कैन नॉट बी रीच चेक्ड बिफोर अप्रूवल. मैं बैठी हूँ यहाँ पे सिर्फ अप्रूव करने के लिए ट्रांजेक्शन को, तो मैं एक एक एंट्री को दोबारा चेक नहीं कर सकती हूँ कि पेमेंट सही अकाउंट में गई है, सही वेंडर को गई है, मैं चेक करूँ दोबारा से. आई कैन नॉट डू दैट. But yes, somebody else can do that, right? You have to set up that control. One person is initiating the entry and then the other person is approving the entry. And maybe I'm a person who is also validating the entry in between. That kind of things can be done to prevent fraud. And that is again a part of e-commerce seller. Let's also talk about manufacturing units, because आज manufacturing पे बहुत फोकस है. एज मेड इन इंडिया कॉन्सेप्ट चला है, या फिर हम ईज ऑफ डूइंग बिजनेस के बाद बहुत सारी मैन्युफैक्चरिंग यूनिट सेटअप हुई है. सो आई थिंक इट्स अ वेरी गुड स्कोप टू हेल्प देम विद सेटिंग अप देयर बिजनेसेस एंड सेटिंग अप इंटरनल कंट्रोल्स फॉर देम. बिकॉज शॉर्ट टर्म में प्रॉब्लली हमको प्रॉफिटेबल ना दिखे, बट इन लॉन्ग टर्म इट इज रियली एडवांटेजियस एंड beneficial. Again, in manufacturing units, a lot of vendors are there, a lot of transactions are there, a lot of work is there. बहुत मल्टीपल वेंडर्स होंगे, यहाँ भी मल्टीपल पार्ट्स में ट्रांजेक्शन प्रोसेस होगी, एक के बाद दूसरी जाएगी, दूसरे के बाद तीसरी जाएगी, बिकॉज लेवल्स होते हैं. प्रोसेस पहले यहाँ प्रोसेस हुआ, एक प्रोडक्ट है, फर्स्ट स्केल में बना, फिर दूसरे स्केल में बना, फिर उसको फिनिशिंग हुआ, पैकेजिंग हुआ, मल्टीपल राउंड्स हो रही है. देयर आर ह्यूज चांसेस ऑफ फ्रॉड्स, देयर आर ह्यूज चांसेस ऑफ मिसअप्रोप्रिएशन, इनकरेक्ट एंट्रीज, बाय विल और नॉट बाय विल, जैसे भी मान लीजिए हो सकते हैं. So inventory management plays a very important role in manufacturing units. So you can always suggest internal controls. And I tell you, it is not important कि पूरा का पूरा business से internal controls या internal checks लगाने. You can always suggest internal control setup in a part of the process as well. Automation कर सकते, जैसे हम automation करते हैं. Automation पूरा business कई बार नहीं हो सकता, लेकिन एक process हो सकता है. जैसे कि आईटीआर प्रोसेस, आईटीआर ऑटोमेट हुई, जरूरी तो नहीं है ना अकाउंट्स मेंटेनेंस ऑटोमेट हुई, राइट? सिमिलरली यू कैन ऑलवेज सजेस्ट इंटरनल कंट्रोल्स इन सम पार्ट ऑफ वर्क, कि आप एटलीस्ट इन्वेंट्री मैनेजमेंट के लिए इंटरनल कंट्रोल्स लगा लो, या आप वेंडर क्रिएशन के लिए इंटरनल कंट्रोल लगा लो कि वेंडर क्रिएट होगा वो 2 बार चेक होगा, एक बार उसको ये चेक करेगा, वो बिल से चेक करेगा, वो ऑर्डर से चेक, ऑर्डर रिपोर्ट से चेक करेगा, तो व्हाट चलान्स चेक करेगा कि सेम वेंडर है कि नहीं. तो यू कैन ऑलवेज सेट अप इंटरनल कंट्रोल्स इन सम पार्ट ऑफ बिजनेस एज वेल, नॉट नेसेसरली कि सब में करें. जो चैलेंज लग रहा है, जहां पे भी जो पार्ट ऑफ बिजनेस में चैलेंज लग रहा है, वहां पे आप कर सकते हैं, राइट? Costing control extend to labor, material, and overhead expenses. Manufacturing unit hai, cost estimation is very difficult. So there you can set up costing controls. You can take the help of CMAs जो कि control check करते हैं कि क्या cost होनी चाहिए, right? Control procedure purchasing activities are critical. As I told you, vendor registration payment सबसे बहुत fraud दिखते हैं. अगर आप जब internal audit के prospect से वहां जाओगे ना, you will realize incorrect vendor creation. टेंडर गलत हुआ है, टेंडरिंग इज रॉन्ग इन गवर्नमेंट ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस, यू विल सी टेंडरिंग इज रॉन्ग, टेंडर प्रोसीजर्स फॉलो नहीं किए गए, 2-3 कोटेशन चाहिए थी, 2 कोटेशन में कर दिया, राइट? इस डेट को पब्लिश किया, 3 डेज का टाइम देना था, 2 डेज में कर दिया, या फिर 3 डेज तक कोई नहीं आया, अपने आप किसी को भी अलोकेट कर दिया. सो दिस काइंड ऑफ कंट्रोल्स आल्सो you will see mismatch in the controls in various government organization. So वहां पे also you can suggest certain internal control procedures. Validating transactions that prevents fraud, of course, as I told you, पेमेंट करने से पहले 2 बार चेक हो सकता है, ये आप लगा सकते हो. एंड इट इज ऑल ऑटोमेटेड. ऐसा नहीं है कि क्योंकि हमने इंटरनल कंट्रोल लगा दिया तो हमारे प्रोसेस लेट हो गई, ठीक है? यू हैव टू डू यूज एआई इनटू दिस, राइट? कुछ ऐसा करना है कि ये सब ऑटोमेटेड हो. आई एम नॉट श्योर हाउ मेनी ऑफ यू यूजेस गूगल शीट्स. Google Sheets are very effective. You can do a lot of work through Google Sheets. You can create workflows. You can create support centers, a lot of things from that, and it is very effective. It saves a lot of time, right? Shared versions है वहाँ पे. You can always set up, procedural setup कर सकते हो वहाँ पे. Next point पे जाने से पहले ये complete करो. And इसमें बहुत सारी checklist बन सकती हैं जो कि आप हर टीम को allocate कर दो कि आपको ये checklist भरनी है. Once you are done with your process, you have to fill up your checklist. And once you press, मतलब buttons लग सकते हैं वहाँ पे, yes, press OK or done, it will move to the next step. So these kind of work can also be done. तो ये भी that will help you to actually control frauds, और maybe time भी बचाएगा और product भी अच्छा देगा, result भी अच्छा देगा. So manufacturing units अगर आपके clients हैं तो you have huge scope of internal audit there. डेफिनेटली अगर मैंडेटरी है तो वहां पे होता होगा, और होता भी होगा. देन ऑल्सो यू कैन ऑल्सो चेक कि सही से हो रहा है कि नहीं हो रहा. अगर लिमिटेड कंपनीज हैं तो, और नहीं हो रहा है तो यू कैन ऑलवेज हैव एन अपॉर्चुनिटी टू पिच इन फॉर दी प्रोजेक्ट्स देयर कि हाँ हम ये पर्टिकुलर सेटअप में हेल्प कर सकते हैं. वी हैव डन दैट इन पास्ट, सो दैट इज व्हाई आई एम सेइंग कि दिस यू कैन डू दैट. ठीक है. नाउ ओके, सो दिस इज ऑल. I think this is time to take questions because internal audit is a huge thing. हम कितना भी बात कर सकते हैं इसके बारे में. तो I think let's talk about certain issues or maybe certain areas where you have implemented internal controls, or maybe you think if it can be done or not. Viraj, maybe you.
Yeah. Hello. Am I audible?
Yes.
Yeah. So there are few questions. I'll just read out the few questions which are there, the portal which I can see. I think the first one is, how can internal audit support risk management functions in an organization?
Okay, so risk, as I told you, whenever the term risk management comes, it means those charged with governance. So internal audit can support risk management process with collaboration with the management. Okay, you have to convince the management that yes, by doing or by implementing internal controls, by implementing internal audits in the process, we have benefits out of it. We can show more accuracy of doing work, we can show more and better financial statements, and we have better ways to implement our controls or checks or maybe our procedures that we are doing. So this is how you can use internal audit in collaboration with the management, in collaboration with the risk management process.
Okay, thank you. The next question is internal audit will internal audit come under the NFRA lens?
Yes, it is. I mean, I'm not saying that you're directly responsible for not following internal controls or internal checks, but yes, because internal audit is mandatory for few of the entities, which is I already mentioned limited entities or limit companies with certain turnover and paid up capital. So, but it is as I showed you an audit report wherein we say that internal controls are duly considered, taken care by the management, by us. So when you are giving this kind of declaration and later on you are being found that yes, there are defaults, there were flaws in your management process, in the internal controls, you may be held responsible. It is not under NFRA, but yes, you may be held responsible for the ignorance that you have done.
Okay, thank you. The next question is: a company appoints its ex-employee as an internal auditor. Is the auditor required to follow standards on internal audit? Whether that would be allowed?
So there is no restriction on who cannot be appointed as an internal auditor unless there is a terms with the company. A company might have its own policies and terms with in the employment letter that once you leave the company you cannot be taken back, or maybe you cannot be hired as a consultant, or maybe this kind of thing. And if there is a term with the company employee, then you cannot come back. But else, otherwise, you can be hired as an internal audit. As I told you, so we were approaching one of the company for work, not work, I mean not directly with work. The company has approached us to share one employee to perform a particular task. We said that we cannot provide you an employee, but we can help you in doing this particular task as a consultant, right? So so this is how you have to identify whether the employee has a term with the company not to do the work. If not, then yes, he can be appointed as an internal auditor if he has the requisite conditions or qualifications. He's a CA, he's a CWA, or any other professional as mentioned in the requirements.
Yeah. There are few more. I'll just read out. Yeah. So then, if a client has restricted the scope of the internal audit to a certain level, let's say assuming to sale, purchase, or banking, only bank, whether the internal auditor is still liable to check for all the other compliances. Like, I think that is a
Correct. And that's a very good question, I would say. As I told you, that internal controls, internal audit could be for a particular area as well, depending on your letter of engagement. You can be held appointed for a particular area, you can be appointed for the entire process. If it is in their engagement letter that you have to be restricted towards particular areas, then you are responsible for those areas only. I do not have to go beyond that. Then professional skepticism, definitely you have to apply while doing any work, because if you can see any fraud or misstatement in one particular area, you can sense that yes, it could be there in another area as well. So professional skepticism, definitely you have to apply. But yes, if your letter of engagement says and restrict you to an area, then you have to work on that area.
Thank you. The next question is: client will always ask the internal auditor to take a practical approach to tackle a solution. Whenever such situation arises, how to tackle the client in such situation. There especially there are documentation and the audit trail is not proper.
See, client तो बहुत कुछ कहता है. While we are performing bank audits as well, client बहुत कुछ कहता है. It is on our judgment कि हमें कितना मानना है और कितना नहीं, and how beautifully we can actually articulate things. Because अगर हमारे engagement में या engagement letter में या फिर हमारे scope में, if it is mentioned to report out certain evidences या कुछ situations को, then we have to report out. It is on you. अगर आप नहीं करते हो तो you are entering into a difficult position. So client के कहने से नहीं होता. I agree that it is being hired by the management, right? And जो internal, as I told you, that internal auditors जो होते हैं, they report to management, not to the statutory auditors, correct? But ultimately, when you are an internal auditor, you carry a responsibility towards the corporate, towards the stakeholders. So आपको ये इंश्योर करना है कि अगर कोई कुछ भी मना किया जा रहा है थ्रू क्लाइंट, if you it is covered in your engagement letter, you have to report on that. Then you have to report. आपके ऊपर है कि आप उसको कितना ब्यूटीफुली आर्टिकुलेट करो ताकि क्लाइंट भी सेटिस्फाई हो जाए. मतलब नॉन ऑफिशियल टर्म्स में मैं आपको बोल रही हूँ कि क्लाइंट भी सेटिस्फाई हो जाए एंड यू आर आल्सो एबल टू कंटिन्यू विद द असाइनमेंट. बट आई टेल यू, बहुत जगह आपको ऐसे मिलेगा, especially in government companies, जहाँ पे internal auditors through tender or through government hire होते हैं, and client, they actually fear देता है उनको कि ना, if you do this, we will not, impanel you again, या हमको दोबारा आपको लॉट नहीं करेंगे, ये नहीं करेंगे. But you do not have to consider that, भाई. अगर if you see a possible fraud, a possible revenue leakage, you have to report that. You have to report that.
Yeah, this is not directly related to internal audit. The next question, basically the question is what is the role of social auditors and how this works? If you can address.
Right. So I'm a social auditor as well. So basically nowadays what is happening is companies are now listed on social stock exchange as well. And it is not mandatory till now, but yes, very soon it will be mandatory. So with that, there is a huge scope for social auditors, because what they do is they ensure that the proper listing of social in the social stock exchange has been done, and all the guidelines which are prescribed has been managed and processed. So that is why social auditor course has been launched, and it is being done in association with ICI only. There is separate institute of social auditors, which is again a body of ICI only, and you can pass that course and enroll yourself as a social auditor there. They take some time to enroll you, but once you're enrolled, there is not much work right now for the social auditors, but very soon listed companies will also be listed in the social stock exchange, and once listed, you will have a great scope there.
Thank you. How to begin with internal audit assignments when only a CA is having an experience of statutory audits only.
Absolutely, but जब हम statutory audit experience लेते हैं, तो we have, मतलब I agree that directly internal audit में enter is very difficult. So the preliminary work that you can do before entering into internal audit practice is go through the reports, okay, reports of big entities, जैसे कि Reliance, जैसे कि Mahindra, Bajaj. Go to the audit reports of those kind of entities. उनके बहुत बड़े sections होते हैं internal controls के, right? You will be able to sense कि एक कॉर्पोरेट में क्या क्या एप्लीकेबल हो सकता है, क्या क्या इंटरनल कंट्रोल्स लग सकते हैं, एंड क्या क्या मिसेस हो सकते हैं, बिकॉज वहां पे क्वालिफिकेशन भी होगी, राइट? तो यू विल बी एबल टू आइडेंटिफाई कि क्या क्या चैलेंजेस हो सकते हैं एक कॉर्पोरेट को, कहाँ पे फ्रॉड डिटेक्ट हो सकता है, कहाँ पे चेक्स फेलियर्स हो सकते हैं, एंड देन विद दैट यू कैन पिच इन विद योर क्लाइंट्स फॉर द सिमिलर काइंड ऑफ वर्क. You can also start with preparing checklist. फॉर एग्जाम्पल कैश, जब आप कैश चेक करने जा रहे हो तो 10 चीजें चेक करोगे, बिकॉज मैं बता दूं आपको, जब हम स्टैट्यूटरी ऑडिट करने जाते हैं तो वी हैव वेरी लिमिटेड टाइम, और वी आर नॉट एबल टू डू डिटेल्ड प्रोसीजर्स व्हाइल ऑडिटिंग, राइट? जैसे फॉर एग्जाम्पल इन बैंक ऑडिट एंड कंकरेंट ऑडिट वी कैन सी द डिफरेंस. जब हम बैंक स्टैट्यूटरी ऑडिट करने चाहते हैं, वी हैव जस्ट 1 week, I guess, for a branch, and we are not able, we want to do everything, but we are not able to do 100% checking there. Controls check करना, though it is a part of our responsibility, but हम नहीं कर पाते हैं, ज्यादा नहीं कर पाते हैं. But जब हम concurrent audit करते हैं तो हमारा काम ही ये है, तो हमें करना ही है, right? तो we do every kind of check, and there are checklists prescribed by the banks itself कि आपको ये सब चीजें चेक करनी है, रिपोर्ट आउट करना होता है, सब कुछ ऑनलाइन है तो वैसे भी रिपोर्ट आउट करना होता है, राइट? सिमिलरली प्रिपेयर चेकलिस्ट फॉर योर वर्क. दैट इज द बेस्ट वे टू डू इंटरनल ऑडिट. इंटरनल ऑडिट, आपको क्या क्या लगता है कि एक कैश के एरिया में क्या क्या चैलेंजेस हो सकते हैं, मिस अप्रोप्रिएशंस हो सकते हैं, कोलैबोरेशन ऑफ एम्प्लॉइज हो सकता है, ये सब चीजें कितनी मिस अप्रोप्रिएशन ऑफ फंड्स हो सकता है, क्या क्या चीजें पॉसिबिलिटीज किस किस एरिया में है, लेट्स डाउन दैट, and then you make a checklist of that ki, is it being followed by the organization, can controls be kept in this area, possible chances क्या है, पहले कभी पास्ट में हुआ है, all these kind of questions you keep in your mind, prepare a checklist, and with that start with a smaller client. कुछ भी क्लाइंट हो, अपना खुद का कोई क्लाइंट है, जो मैंने बहुत सारी इंडस्ट्रीज मेंशन इसीलिए की सो दैट हमारा दिमाग चलने लगे कि इन एरियाज में तो एटलीस्ट हम स्टार्ट कर सकते हैं. इस तरह का आपका कोई क्लाइंट है तो स्टार्ट विद दैट, and you will be able to, once you are done with one of the client, you will be a master in that. Any other question for me?
So how the ICFR reporting and internal audit is different?
Sorry, hi, how?
How the ICFR reporting and the internal audit is different?
हाँ, तो आईसीफीआर ऑडिटिंग रिपोर्टिंग हम करते हैं फॉर बैंक्स एज वेल, फॉर स्टैट्यूटरी ऑडिट जो कुछ होते हैं बैंक्स के, कुछ कुछ ब्रांचेस में आईसीएफओआर रिपोर्टिंग होती है, वो फाइनेंशियल कंट्रोल रिपोर्टिंग ही होती है। दैट इज बेसिकली इंटरनल कंट्रोल्स की चेक्स ओनली, कि ट्रांजेक्शन जो प्रोसेस हो रही है वो सही से हो रही है, क्या स्टेप्स फॉलो होते हैं, कोई मिस मैच तो नहीं आता, आता है तो उसे कैसे टैकल किया जाता है, व्हाट इज द सॉल्यूशन बिहाइंड इट। सो ऑल दीज एफर्ट्स जो रिपोर्टिंग है, दैट इज सेम एज इंटरनल ऑडिट ओनली, दैट इज बेसिकली सेम, लेकिन वो वन टाइम होती है। इंटरनल ऑडिट इज रेगुलर, हर क्वार्टर में होता है चेक। व्हाट हैपेंस इन इंटरनल ऑडिट इज probably the internal auditor does not check everything every quarter, but they divide the work in for different quarters, कि इस particular quarter में हम overview सबका लेंगे, but we will be focusing on particular areas for this quarter, so that we will be able to identify whether a particular process is being properly followed in our organization or not. Next quarter में एक नया area identify करते हैं कि हाँ, अब की बार हम vendor to seller जो ये पूरा प्रोसेस है उसको पूरा हम देखेंगे, नेक्स्ट क्वार्टर में हम पेमेंट्स का देखेंगे। सो इस तरह से फोकस जो अप्रोच होती है, ओवरव्यू सबका लेना पड़ता है कि पूरा प्रोसेस कैसे फॉलो कर रहा है, बट फोकस्ड अप्रोच रहती है, एंड दैट इज बेसिकली आईएफओसीआर रिपोर्टिंग ओनली, दैट वी डू इन बैंक्स एज वेल, इट इज सेम।
I think you've addressed to all our queries and questions.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think we can conclude because there are no more questions.
Okay. And yes,
Yeah.
this is a new area, but definitely it's a very lucrative area. And the way we are seeing the things are progressive. A lot of opportunities are there for chartered accountants, especially when a lot of guidelines are being laid down by NAFRA ने भी किया है, ICICI हमारे पास है, हमारे खुद के auditing accounting standards हैं, सब कुछ है. Then we see a lot of opportunity in the internal audit section. जैसे कि हम बात करते हैं कि यार स्टैट्यूटरी ऑडिट आगे जाके कम हो जाएंगे या फिर खत्म हो जाएंगे, कंप्लायंसेस वर्क कम हो जाएगा, देन आई सजेस्ट यू टू एंटर इनटू एनी न्यू एरिया, एंड आई टेल यू इंटरनल ऑडिट कभी खत्म नहीं होगा, इसका वे जरूर चेंज हो सकता है, दैट वी आर करेंटली वी आर डूइंग मैनुअल, प्रोबब्ली इन फ्यूचर एआई के थ्रू होगा, तो एआई इंप्लीमेंट करने के लिए भी कोई चाहिए, राइट? सो और उसको चेक्स तो हम ही बताएंगे ना, चीजें तो हमें बताएंगे कि कैसे लग सकता है। सो यू हैव ह्यूज अपॉर्चुनिटी हियर, इट इज जस्ट दैट यू हैव टू आइडेंटिफाई इट, you have to identify the existing clients first. You don't reach directly to the tenders available in the market. You first do internal audit in your existing clients, and you will find a huge opportunity, huge opportunity.
Yeah. So I think with this, would thank you so much, Ruchi, for accepting the invitation from the institute and enlightening us the the scope of internal audit which the practicing CAs have. I think we'll all agree that all the members who are present during the lecture will all agree that we are completely enlightened and we have understood. And I think you have explained the opportunities which we have in the field of internal audit, vastly. And I think it will help everyone in their professional practice, to understand the scope and expand their practices. I think personally, I am into income tax and GST litigation. So listening to this, I think I've also understood a lot of opportunities which is available for us. So I think with this, would I think would request everyone to give a hearty vote of thanks to Ruchi. And again, once again, thank you so much for addressing to all the queries and questions.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
If anybody has any other question, you can just message or drop an email to me. I would be happy to answer that.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you. Yes.